Yay. Good. We're getting started now. Hi, everyone. Welcome. It's Friday after a very, very long week to a very long year, even though it's only been a few days into the year. I think I'm probably not the only one who's feeling this way. You know what's really good about these office hours? There's a chat function, so you don't just have to hear from me. You can hear from each other. So go ahead, say hi, say where you're calling in from, say what you're doing and what you want to do, which can be general about your life, but we're talking careers here. So if you are looking for a job, be clear about it. You don't ask, you don't get. So I'll start here. I'll break the ice. Oh, good. Hi, I'm Claire Wasserman. I am the founder of Ladies Get Paid. I will talk about what that is in just a second. But in the meantime, I do want to hear from you. So come on, we got 46 people here. Let's do it. Put in your LinkedIns, drop those LinkedIns. There's a lot of people who've come to these who've actually been able to get work through just saying hello. Good. We got Megan, we got Marielle. Looking for remote jobs. So tell us, again, specifically, explicitly, where exactly do you want to work? What do you want to do? And it's okay if you don't have one answer. A lot of people who submitted questions to me have a broad swath of passions and interests and ideas, and they're looking to get focused. That's okay. So when you network with people, they're going to help you get focused. Fabulous. So not sure yet, and that's okay. Just generally, what are you looking for? Generally, pivoting, fabulous. New York, New Jersey, we've got the East Coast. I'm in Los Angeles. So there you go. We had over 350 people RSVP, which is fantastic. Good, we've got Toronto. And this will be up for life. So also, by the way, if you are watching this and you did not join live, that's okay. But I do recommend every Friday, come back 10 a.m. Pacific time, 1 p.m. Eastern time. I will be here every Friday for the next few months and take advantage of this. Quickly, I'm Claire again. So what does Ladies Get Paid? Ladies Get Paid is an educational platform that helps women advance professionally, financially, getting paid, getting power. Okay, it can mean a lot of different things in people's lives, but I'm kind of obsessed with closing the gaps like the wage gap, leadership gap, investment gap, funding gap. And this is my answer to taking command of your life. You have to make sure that you are advocating for yourself. And that means also believing that you are deeply worthy of advocacy. And that's what we're going to talk about today too. So yes, it's about finding your dream job, but it's also making sure that you're ready for your dream job. People wrote in and told me they don't know if they should even apply. I have things to say about that. Good. I'm glad to see more people are putting in their questions and introducing themselves into the chat. Yes, I am worthy in all capital letters. That sentence should always be in all capital letters. I'm going to talk to you about the format today. So 350 people RSVP'd. I probably got as many questions, which is great. Whatever I teach, it is because you have asked me to teach it. I construct my lessons, my talks based on you. So I'm going to go through, answer some questions. I'll give you a heads up about the general structure of the conversation today. But as I go through, I would love you to ask questions real time, throw them into the chat. I'll probably be pretty focused on the questions that were submitted before. That being said, towards the end, I'm going to go through and just take a quick peek of questions that you all are liking. And by the way, if you see a question that you also have, do a little up arrow so I know which ones to focus on. And by the way, yes, I'm a career coach. That doesn't mean that I know everything. And also, I'm just one person. You all have stories to share. You all have insight. So if somebody asks a question and it sounds like something you've gone through, or you're able to give a little bit of advice, I highly encourage you to do that. Again, I'm here to get you thinking about things, getting you started, getting you motivated. But this is a community and it's here for you. So take advantage of it. Any tips on recovering from a toxic workplace? Okay. I always say I'm not going to start with your questions. I'm going to start with the ones that were submitted before. So I'm going to get back to you, Constance. I'm liking that question, although I don't like that you're in a toxic environment. Cheers, everybody. If you have coffee, if you have a cocktail, no judgment. We're going to do a quick cheers because, again, it is Friday. We have made it. You're doing great. You showed up. You're investing in your life, in your career, and you should feel really proud of yourself. There you go. I have a little saucer, so that's fun too. All right, let's get started. So the overall structure of today, is, okay, finding your dream job. By the way, I shouldn't have put that as the title because I don't believe in a dream job. You know why? Because nothing's perfect. And your dreams change, right? We've got different chapters of our life, and the things that we prized and prioritized even just a year ago may look completely different than what we're doing now. So I also want you to be really open-minded to things that happen in your life. So as much as we want to be focused and strategic, and yes, we will be talking about how to do that, it's also going with the flow. So wanted to begin there. Okay. We're going to talk about figuring out what does a dream job look like, which is really more of like a direction you want to go in, and kind of whittling things down. That's sort of the getting focused part. Then you got to have the confidence to apply. Okay. Then when you apply, how do you stand out? And in particular, if you are pivoting or you don't feel like you have the requisite experience or enough experience, right? How do you demonstrate that the things that you do have are transferable? So how do you do that in both networking, cover letters, resumes, the interview? I'm not going to go too deep into the logistics of all that because we only have about an hour to cover it. And honestly, we did a 4-week boot camp all around this stuff. So I might talk a little bit quickly. And then of course, there's is the company even right for you, right? There's a power dynamic here where you want the job. And so you're like, please give it to me. Okay. It's a relationship. They also should feel lucky to have you. You're sussing them out as much as they're sussing you. Sussing, it's kind of a weird word. I think that's the right word. So when you are deciding if this is the company that's right for you, do you know the questions that you're going to be asking them, asking yourself? Constance asked a question earlier that was spot on. She talked about being in a toxic workplace. Curious for you all, how many of you have decided to leave a job, not so much because of what you were doing, but sort of who you were doing it with or where you were doing it, right? It was about maybe the manager wasn't great, or the company culture just wasn't a good fit. I would love us to figure this stuff out before we take the job, if it is possible. So remember, it is a relationship that goes both ways. And then the last part here is kind of just staying motivated. Motivated both in terms of maybe not getting yeses, right? Applying for jobs, it can take a really long time, or staying motivated or prioritizing your time when you have a full-time job and you are applying for other jobs. That is very exhausting. Also, for those who work full-time but are, they've got a side hustle and they want to create a new business, there is a time management, a bandwidth management issue, and I will address that. Although at some other office hour, we can talk a little bit more about kind of just wellness and staying sane. That was a really good preamble. Now let's actually get started. All right. This is the first question I received. Okay. How do you know what your dream job really is? I feel stuck identifying this and overwhelmed with so many directions and options there are out there. How do I even begin if I have no idea what I could do? All right. So first, let's get into, let's move outside of this like panic of the unknown, right? It's scary when you don't know what's next. Okay. It's exciting also. This is an opportunity. Okay. So like as much as you can, just remember unknown equals opportunity. The key to the future is to not actually obsess over the future because there's an unknown. So I want you to look in the past. If you've come to any of my classes before, I'm kind of obsessed with finding patterns in our lives. I think it says a lot about who we are and what we value. Do what I call energy memories. So starting from when you were a little kid, my mom jokes that I am who I was, as a baby. She would walk by my room. I would be in I was in like the crib and I would be standing up pontificating to all of my stuffed animals, right? So, kind of doing that now. And look back at a couple of things. One, energy, right? What has given you energy in your life? Lights you up. When you've been in the flow, and that is actually a technical term. In the flow, it means you're doing things without even realizing that time is flying by. You've kind of lost yourself. Now, I also want you to think about where you were, because remember that environment is so important. Where were you? Of course, what were you doing? Who was there? How much of this kind of in the flow required you to be with other people? Somebody asked, what's a job that I can get that doesn't require me to be around other people, which I kind of loved. It's like, well, now is sort of the time to do that, right? So it's good to know, do you like working with other people? Is that when you do your best work? Is that when you become alive? It's also looking into the strengths that you have, right? That come naturally to you. I think oftentimes we, especially as women, we equate work with hard work, right? No, work is the things that you do that you'd probably do anyway if you weren't being paid. Now, does that mean that your job is always like that? No, of course you have to do things you don't like to do. Of course you do and should be doing things that challenge you because that means that you're growing. But I think if you get really in tune with yourself, you'll know if it's kind of a force fit, right? Like you're contorting yourself so much into doing something that honestly just doesn't bring you joy in any way or is just really friggin' hard. Like spreadsheets for me. I have realized I can learn as much as I can about spreadsheets, but guess what? It's not my strong suit and I probably shouldn't have a job that does it. AKA, thank God for Ashley, my co-founder, because she does it. In the beginning of your career, yeah, you got to do a lot of things to figure this stuff out and to prove yourself. But please remember, if you are doing things that naturally come to you, right? And that's not just a nice to have, that is the function of your job. If you are a great networker, and you're a really enthusiastic person, can those traits be part of the work that you do? Yes, they can. Yes, they can, okay? And then you're going to look at your curiosities. I think oftentimes we obsess over this word passion. What am I passionate about? You might be passionate about a lot of things, which is great. And a lot of those things may be something you should just do on the side. You shouldn't even try to make money from it. I have a friend who wanted to be a professional musician. After college, she went ahead and tried to become a professional musician, and trying to make money from this just completely sucked out the joy for her. And so she recognized, you know what? I should go into something that is creative, something that's in the music industry. She also looked at other things in her life that brought her joy, that brought her curiosity. Because when you're curious about something, you're going to keep digging. It's going to engage you. And she ended up working for SoundCloud. Okay. So she was able to take something that she was interested, curious, and passionate about. She was able to take on a role at SoundCloud that were, doing things that came naturally to her. She was interested in learning more about tech. So I'd really encourage you, what is an industry that intrigues you? Some of that is just Googling around. What are companies that are doing things that, I want to learn more about that. Subscribe to newsletters like Morning Brew, or looking through the stock market, right? All of these acronyms. What do these acronyms stand for? Because when you start to look at companies, you can get a good sense of A, where is an environment where you think you could thrive, and B, where is a place that is growing because you want to be part of that. It's a little tough now because for many of us, we have been in industries that are paralyzed right now. So if it's in person, right, if you are in the music industry or you do events, right, that's an industry that isn't growing for the moment. But does that mean it won't after we can get the hell out of our homes? No, it'll probably come back bigger than ever. So do keep in mind, life is long. While at the same time, carpe diem. So do also make decisions. Working backwards from, would I regret not making this decision? Would I regret making this decision? Your instinct knows, it knows. And I think too often we let the outside voice of here's what I think I should do override or really influence the inner voice that actually knows the direction that we should be going in. There is an expression for this. It is called the tyranny of the shoulds. Has anybody heard of this? It's a psychologist in the 1950s. It was a woman. Okay, so what is the tyranny of the should? The shoulds are what you should or shouldn't be doing. And you know who tells you those things, right? Those are your parents. Those are your school, guardians, religious institutions, media. This is why a lot of women don't realize that they could kick ass in like NASA because they're not seeing a lot of women who look like them, right? You can't be what you can't see. So until you figure out how to bust out of it, we have to understand, okay, what are the things that might be holding us back, right? These assumptions we have, these expectations we have about what we can or cannot do. While you are figuring out what it is that you actually want to do, part of this work is believing that you can. This is the therapy work. This is the inner work. So that's all the stuff. all the stuff you're going to be doing to figure out the direction you want to go in. Then getting rid of this dream job. And again, I know that's false advertising because you showed up, because you saw the headline of this, but I'm here to tell you it's not about dream, it's about priority. I'm going to take a sip of my espresso. It's about your priority. No one job can have it all. You can't have it all at the same time. This is why we're going to just patch together different jobs you have in your life, different experiences that all bring you something useful, that by the end of your career, right, when you look back, and even now, guys, looking back in the last couple of years, the decisions you made might not have really, quote, made sense at the time, but you can weave them together and see a sort of story that comes out of it, right? And part of that is deciding, what do I want? What do I not want? And what is a deal breaker for me? Right? This is also really good for relationships. So I've had some women tell me they've broken up with their significant others as they started to do this kind of deep soul searching when it came to their career, because they realized, wow, I am now going to really stand by my values. And that extends through everything in your life, right? It's also about lifestyle. So the direction of your career is not just how much money do I want to make and does this look good in my resume? It's also about how do I want my day to look, my week, my month, my year, my 5 years, the lifestyle. So it's not just, yes, I want to pay for a big house, which is totally part of a lifestyle. And yes, that is something I want to do. But it's also about how much work do you actually want to do? How early do you want to wake up in the morning, right? Is this going to be 24/7? And if it is it worth it? And so that is a decision that you're going to make by the time that you are applying for jobs or maybe have the job. It's deciding, what is the most important thing in my life? And does this job have it? Do the pros outweigh the cons? Right? It's a cost benefit analysis, and money is totally part of that cost benefit analysis. Last part of figuring out the direction we want to go in, I think it's action. What are the next steps you're going to take? And it's not making a big decision necessarily, right? It's figuring out, can I talk to somebody who can give me more information, right? It's information collecting. So as much research as you think you've done, I would love to challenge you. What more can you do? So the networking part, which we'll talk about in a second, because I did get a lot of questions about that. Who can you talk to? Groups that you can join. Again, those newsletters that you can sign up for. Anything industry related. I mean, really dig in to learning as much as you can about what this role could be, this company, this industry, to decide if this is the next step. And the question you should always ask yourself before you make any decision, whether it is to leave your current job or to apply for another, is what am I going to learn here, right? What kind of exposure is this going to give me in my life? And it's step by step. Anytime that you start feeling really overwhelmed, which yes, this stuff is overwhelming, can be, it's how do I break this down? How do I actually get really small? So there's a few contradictions here, I think, in what I've said, which is I want you to dream really big, right? Like bust out of the tyranny of the shoulds and what you think the right career path is, because there's no right or wrong. It's just life, okay? So bust out of that, right? Think really big. But it's also, how do I break this down and get kind of small, right? Like I said before, there's being strategic about next steps and being focused in the direction you want to go in. It's also about listening to instinct, because the instinct might tell you, you know what, Claire, you don't actually want to go into fashion, right? And being okay with that. It is never, ever, ever too late. I got questions about pivoting. I'm going to talk about that in just a minute. It's never too late. It's never too early, right? This is your life. This is your life. And if you're ever having difficulty, step out and go, if this was a movie, right? Or if this was my friend, how would I cheer this character on? How would I cheer my friend on? What kind of wisdom would I give them? And a lot of times it's just stop being so hard on yourself. Stop being so hard on yourself. I got a question. And by the way, folks, please keep throwing in your questions and talking in the chat. I know I'm not answering them right now because I did get a lot of questions before that I want to address, but I'm not ignoring you. I will try to get to some. Okay, hopefully that was helpful. And if it was helpful, tell me if it's resonating with you. So let's talk about confidence here. So job postings are terrifying. I feel unqualified for every job I see. Is there a hack for breaking down job postings so that they are less intimidating? Okay. I feel unqualified for every job I see. My first question is, are you even looking at the right jobs here? Same thing for if you keep getting rejected from jobs, it might not be you, actually. actually. It really could be them. You could either be applying for the wrong company or role, maybe the size of the company. Like there's a lot of factors going on here. So I do want you to stop and ask yourself, is there a reason this is actually happening that either A, has nothing to do with me, or B, do I need to think differently here? So I would challenge you, are these the right jobs that you even want, or you think you should take them, right? Second, therapy. You feel unqualified for every job you see? All right, you got to come to Ladies Get Paid stuff. By the way, if you all are not in our Slack group, you are seriously missing out. ladiesgetpaid.com. It is free to join. We've got 75,000 women all over the world. Over 2 million messages have been exchanged in our Slack group. That is where you go and you talk about, I'm scared, worried, feeling bad. What do I do? And you've got all these other women who are there to lift you up. It is so important. So part of that is that I think you have imposter syndrome, my friend. If you don't know what imposter syndrome is, lucky you, though you may have it. Definition really quickly. It is this feeling that you are not perhaps as smart or competent or as good as you've presented yourself to be, and that people will find out, okay? There is a statistic that I want you to raise your middle finger to, and the statistic is that women are 20% less likely than men to apply for a job. Women are also 26% less likely to ask for a referral for their job. Putting the middle finger, giving the middle finger to these statistics means you have to apply for the job. You have to ask for the raise. You rip the Band-Aid off and you do it, because guess what? You are 100% likely to not get the job if you don't apply. Like, you are not likely, you are guaranteed to not get the job. Let somebody else reject you. I know that's painful, but you deserve to give yourself a shot, okay? A shot. When I hear shot, I think vaccine. We are in a very strange world, my friends. So there's no hack to breaking it down. Now, here's the thing though. I want you to apply for jobs that you can envision gosh, this is hard. Okay. I want you to really apply for jobs where you see how the job descriptions, the skills, that you have something in your life that you can speak to. And if you are having trouble coming up with that, this means I need you to go to somebody that you are close with, a friend, a colleague, a former boss, and ask them for help. Ask them for feedback on what they think that you're great at, both skill-wise and strength-wise, because strengths can also mean sort of who you are, right? Are you resilient, a fast learner, right? All of these things make you an excellent candidate. So remember, it's not just about the specific experience that you've had. It's also about how you show up as a human and how you can fit in and contribute to the company culture. That is bigger than just your experiences. So don't be afraid of sort of technical terms here, but you do need to get clarity from people in your life who can give you sort of the feedback about what you're best at. Standing out, right? So how do I differentiate myself in a sea of people with the same skills and background, etc.? Well, first of all, let's work backwards from them. There is a job description. They have given you all of the language that you need to use to show them why you are great. So, by the way, if this is a company that uses an ATS, this is an applicant tracking system, they are going to be running the resumes and the cover letters. They're going to run them through the tracking system, and they're going to be searching for keywords that match. So this is also strategic. When you find, okay, these are the things that I'm good at, the most important thing that you can do is quantify your impact. So we got to get out of the I'm responsible for X, Y, and Z things. No. It's what did you do in those X, Y, and Z things? It's a given that you were responsible for it. You can demonstrate your responsibilities through describing what it is that you actually did. And it's not just, I did my job. Okay, you were expected to do your job. It's really, what was the result of that job? What was the impact of that job? How do you quantify that? If you've made any money for the company, and you know what? You have. I know that that's easier for people who are in sales, right? Or in position, or who are business development or lawyers even, right? You're saying, well, here's the clients, here are the clients I brought in, and this is how much money it made. That's easy for those people. If it's harder for you, that doesn't mean you didn't bring in money, because if you didn't bring money, you wouldn't work for the company. It just means that what you did impacts another team or another person that then brings in the money. So your challenge is, how are you going to figure out what your impact has been? That means time that you've saved for the company, because time is money. resources you've saved, if you've done things really efficiently, if you took over somebody else's role. Look at your past job description when you first joined the company or in the last company that you were at. Write a new job description of how your job actually changed. What was the scope difference? This is going to demonstrate to you all of the amazing stuff that you did. Filter that scope change, filter the things that you did through what this next company is going to be looking for. Talk about budgets that you worked on, right? So it's like this project that I worked on was part of a $2 million transaction, or here are the number of people that I trained or supervised. So it's yes, the dollars you bring in, but there are so many different factors in how money comes into a company. That is what your conversation should focus on. And by conversation, I mean cover letter, resume, LinkedIn, in person. I really encourage every single person here to create a personal website. It is not just for people who have creative portfolios. You know why? When people Google you, I want you to own your narrative. Think about if you Google yourself right now, what comes up? Add another website to the search, okay? Personal website. I happen to love Squarespace. There's a little bit of a learning curve, but their customer service is great. They will walk you through it. The reason I like it is the templates are gorgeous. I'm not being paid by them to say this, though. If anybody knows Squarespace and you guys want to pay me, that's fine too. So it'll look really professional. What do you put on your personal website? Well, it's showing what you've done, but it's giving kind of color commentary to it. Right? So if your resume is, and by the way, your resume, you should make different ones based on the jobs that you're applying to. Yes, some of these jobs may be exactly the same, but probably not. The companies you apply to, they're not going to exactly be the same. So I know it's exhausting, but you might need to make different kinds of resumes. But you only have so many bullet points. I really encourage you to keep it to one page. So having a personal website, and you'll put that URL on there, you can expand a little bit more. You could maybe include images, include testimonials. By testimonials, I mean great feedback that you got, client, boss, colleague, things like that. You're going to talk about who you are. So these are things like your kind of EQ, right? The emotional intelligence. I call it superpowers. Are you an enthusiastic person, patient, empathetic? These are things you should know about yourself, and you should articulate them. I know that sounds a little bit funny. Telling somebody, and when I say telling, I mean both on the paper, on the website, and also in person. Telling somebody, well, I'm an enthusiastic person. Like, you're going to talk about how your enthusiasm has impacted the company. And usually it's my enthusiasm has been really motivating to my team. And in motivating the team, I've seen that they work really hard. And in being so committed, we've become more efficient, right? I can kind of make this up. I'm not talking about lying. I'm talking about making the logical, sort of like next step of, if you are an enthusiastic cheerleader of your team, yeah, I think you can kind of infer here that it's probably gotten people to work really hard. If you have worked with your team for a long time and you feel like you've contributed a lot, retention is good for companies. Companies want to know that you've been able to help people stick around, right? That there hasn't been turnover. So if you have any kind of impact on your colleagues where you've seen that they've stayed at the company for years, like, this is something that you should mention. By the way, I did get questions about, I've been at my job for a little over a year. Is it too early to make a jump? I say a year, you can move on. You can move on. I wouldn't do less than a year, though. If you do get an incredible opportunity that comes your way, you go take the incredible opportunity, because the next job that you get, if you ever need to talk about why you made the jump, I think every single person will understand, wow, that opportunity was definitely worth it. That being said, a year, you've done your time. So I think you're fine. And also, by the way, in terms of like cover letters, it's why do you want the job? It's why you're uniquely qualified for it. Anything that you think is important to convey that's part of who you are. Look at the values that the company has put on their website. Research a lot about the company. They probably have a publicist who, they're using certain language on their website to demonstrate who they are. I want you then to be able to say back to them, here are the values you've listed, or the mission you've listed, or what I've come to understand about your company culture. Here are experiences that I've had in my life that really, reflect back why I think I embody that. or why I do embody it or why I believe I embody it. So do keep in mind, and this is also really great for anybody who is trying to make a career change, right? Got a lot of questions about pivots. That is where you really harp on your life experience. Same thing for anybody who has had a gap in their resume. Again, you are being hired for who you are and how you fit in with a team. And it's not just you do a certain thing. I'm going to talk actually a little bit about the pivoting. Okay. So what advice do you have for constructing your resume if you're trying to make a career transition? How to explain the switch to an employer, that it was due to passion, although you may have no experience. So that's kind of similar questions here. I would say that you need to demonstrate that you have an understanding of the role that you're stepping into. You have an understanding of the industry. How are you going to figure this out? You have to talk to people who have had your job or who currently have your job. That's where networking comes in, because if you don't actually know somebody now, identify them on LinkedIn. Reach out, tell them research you've done already. Tell them a little bit of your story, right? You're nervous about applying, right? Like, they probably have been in your position. Like, we're all trying to figure this stuff out and we're all like nervous about this stuff. So you can express that. You can be a bit vulnerable with them. You can then ask them just a specific question. So it's not, I'd love to pick your brain, because honestly, what does that mean? Like, our brains are big. Or how did you get into this? Okay, that's a good question. It's kind of still abstract. So see if you can break it down a little bit more. I think a great question to ask somebody who either has the job that you want or has had the job that you want, I would say, what are challenges that you have faced in this role? How did you overcome them? Or what do you wish you had known when you had taken this job? Because that is what you want to speak to when you are applying for those jobs. Because think about this. If I am your employer, you can just put yourself in the shoes of your potential employer. And I'm looking at you and thinking, here are my concerns, right? You're going to work backwards from what you think their concerns are going to be. My concern is that they've never experienced this before. So they're not going to know what to do. But if you can say, I have spoken to X, Y, and Z people, some of them are my peer level, but maybe some have more experience. Here's what I've come to understand about the industry and about the role. And here's why I believe I can meet those challenges. And it's going to be examples from the past about how you were a fast learner, because that would be the concern, right? There's going to be too much of a learning curve. All right, let me give you an example of how I learned really quickly. Part of that is being resourceful, right? Being creative, being resilient. I want you to show how you've taken risks in your life and why that is a good thing. Why having the perspective of an outsider is unique and a good thing. But, if you need to have taken classes to show that you actually can walk into this environment and be familiar with the language, right? Of course, this all depends on the kind of role that you're looking for. If it's hyper specific, like, take some coding classes. I mean, you also, need to demonstrate that you've done serious research and as much as you can outside of the role in order to get it. But I do think working backwards from having talked to people who've been in that role and understanding what they had to go through is a great thing. And I did get a question about, is it okay to kind of start from the beginning, right? Like, if you are farther in your career, but you want to pivot, should you take an entry-level job just to get in the door? Listen, I really hope nobody takes a job out of desperation, which means you need to have your finances in order. Please, 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 if you haven't learned during this time how important it is to have savings, we'll do a whole office hours on money, okay, in the future. And that's why we do Ladies Get Paid, and it's part career and part money, because they are inextricably tied. I don't want you to make a jump out of financial desperation or because you're worried that it's going to be a gap on your resume. And I'll talk about gaps on a resume in just a second. I want you to put that aside. If this gets you in the door, that's not necessarily a bad thing, right? Like, decisions are made based on, how will I grow? What will I learn? What exposure does this give me? Or does this, it's basically a question of, how will I benefit from this? And then how will I not benefit from this? And that's where that cost benefit analysis comes in. If this gets you in the door and you can now find people at the company who can mentor you, and you just have to ask, don't ask them to mentor you. That's like a really big thing to ask. It's like, will you marry me? Like you have to wait a little bit. But there are people you can develop relationships with and ask them, what is your, again, what do you wish you had known? That way you can get more intel about what it is that you need to do to get the kind of role that you want. So if you are totally green, yeah, you might need to take a lower level role and you might need to take a pay cut. Or you hold out. You keep waiting, you keep applying, and you try to find something better. But like I said before, I had a misleading headline. It is not about a dream job. It is about a job that fits your values and your priorities in this chapter of your life. Okay. Let us see how to explain. Okay, so let's actually talk about explaining the lapse in your resume. So if you were unemployed for a while for a variety of reasons, by the way, you can do what's called a functional resume. It's also just a skills-based resume. Nobody said you had to put dates on your resume. By the way, I'm just one person. Please talk to other folks as well. There are lots of different templates of resumes out there. The only thing I would say that's a really big issue is if you use hard to read font. There are certain I don't know if it's Times New Roman and Arial, can't even pronounce it, 12, but there are certain fonts that you should be looking at because those are the ones that will go through the applicant tracking system. Other ones may have difficulty. So do more research about that. But the templates are not so strict. So if you want to just say, forget about the dates, I'm going to start with my experiences, my skills. So, and that is also going to allow you to sort of categorize your work. So let's say event planning. So instead of saying maybe I've worked in these 3 places and here's what I did, it's maybe the bucket is event planning. And then within that, there are experiences and the results, the impact of those experiences. Right? In the summary at the top, that is when you can bring all of this together. Or you could include dates, but just don't put them in bold. Like figure out a way to sort of minimize the presence of those dates. You do not have to put all of your job description. In fact, please, or all the jobs you've had, please don't actually. Especially if you're worried about ageism, I probably wouldn't talk about work that you've done in like the early 90s. Like let's keep it pretty focused towards the beginning. So that's a way to sort of keep things relevant as best as you can. You also can talk about things that you've done outside of work. So in the gap that you have, you probably did some things. Let's say you were a stay-at-home mom, right? There were lots of things that you did that you can talk about, right? Things that demonstrate, again, multitasking, right? Qualities that they're going to be very interested in. So don't be afraid to also put, quote, non-professional stuff. If you were let go, don't lie. Don't lie. Be prepared to address all of this stuff. Do not badmouth anybody ever. You can make it sound like it was a mutual decision. It was time for you to move on because you wanted to grow. So sort of pivot pretty quickly into like the positive part and why you're excited to work at this company. I'm not going to go too much into that because I want to sort of stay focused in like figuring out the direction you want to go as opposed to like the nitty gritty of interviewing. We can totally do an office hours based on that. But don't be worried if you have these gaps. Please don't. It's about the story that you tell about your sort of overall path here. Staying motivated, guys. I mean, I know this is the hard part. If you are feeling exhausted right now because you are applying for work while you have your full-time job, take care of yourself first and foremost. That's the most important thing. It just is. You're no good to anybody else, least of all yourself, if you are running yourself ragged. I would just say make a plan. Make a plan. Have an organizational system. Airtable. I love airtable.com. Go check that out. I think there is a template, a sort of spreadsheet template in there for job tracking. Put stuff on your calendar. Have somebody who can hold you accountable. Again, join ladiesgetpaid.com. You can, as part of the Slack group, there's a jobs channel. Stay in touch with people. And then take breaks, right? So if it's, I'm going to do this 1 hour a day, maybe that's better than doing it, 5 hours on a Saturday. Or the reverse is true. Only do your job hunts on Saturdays, right? Be careful about using your work computer. I've never had more than one computer, so that just wasn't possible for me. But I do want you to be careful about how, the hours you spend at work applying to other jobs. I mean, it's a little different now because we're working from home. But I did want to mention that. Again, also remember that it's still, there's fate, there's an element of fate. Like, you're taking command of your career, but there's only so much you can do here. And I do believe that things happen for a reason. Everything is timing. If you're getting discouraged because you're not getting the work, do remember that most jobs, and this is going to sound discouraging, but just hear me out for a second. Most jobs are filled internally, and they put these jobs online because it's perfunctory, because they have to. So they may already know that they're going to be filling it in-house, whether it's a person coming from a different department or coming up through the ranks. Usually HR still says you have to post this publicly. Does that mean you don't apply? No. Remember, if you don't apply, 100% you're not getting it. But if you are not getting a response, it really may have nothing to do with you. Don't take it personally. I know that's really hard. It's like you want to make your job application as personal as possible, but you don't want to take it personally if you don't get it. That being said, please have people in your life review this stuff. Have them practice interviewing with you. Have them edit all of your stuff. If you are not doing this, you're doing yourself no service here. I mean, you're not burdening another person, because we all need to do this at some point. And you're saying to them, hey, listen, when it's time for you to do this, or if you ever need help, I'm here for you. So don't worry about burdening others. If they don't have time to do this, they will tell you. So make sure you're getting help to make sure you're showing up strong. Remembering, it is a numbers game. Ultimately, the more jobs you apply to, the higher prospect that you'll actually get the job. Here's the thing though. If you are applying to tons and tons of jobs, I'm going to guess that you're not really tailoring, right? Or you're not really digging into do I have stories to tell that fit what they're looking for, or what this kind of company does and what this kind of company is? So again, a balance. I want you to remember it's, the next role, it has to just add something to your life. And again, remember, it's just a year. You can always move on after. So, this just goes back to me saying it's not about the dream job. It's just about the next step. Part of this is networking. How do you know if it's even the right next step? Or and this goes back to what I just said about a lot of jobs being filled internally. That means you need to kind of insert yourself internally. Only way you're going to be able to do that is by networking, by emailing somebody there. So I have a whole networking class. We can do a whole networking office hours. So I'm not going to go too much into it. But in short, you can absolutely do cold outreach. Just again, research that person. Look on their LinkedIn. Are they part of a certain group? Did they go to a certain college? Is there press about them? Maybe they did an interview, right? So showing that you really picked them. It's not just this blanket, all the people who do marketing. No, there's something about them that you want to talk to them about. And then you're going to be specific about how much time you need, right? 20 minutes on Zoom, but it's okay if you don't have time. We could just do this by email. So it's demonstrating to them that you respect their time, because that's probably going to be the biggest reason that somebody doesn't want to network. It's also always offering, how can I support you? Okay. We all needed to network. We all need to find a job at some point. So do remember that this is reciprocal. I've had very important people respond to me, respond to Ashley, okay? Because I think those are the kinds of people who understand that paying it forward continually, that's how they got their career, was other people paying it forward. There's a fantastic networking book out there. I really recommend, if you have not heard of it, I'm giving you a gift of telling you now. It is called Give and Take by Adam Grant. He is a professor out of Wharton Business School, and that is his whole ethos, is that the best kind of networking is paying it forward. And to be more specific about what paying it forward means, it's connecting people. So if you actually want to be a really good networker and grow, both in terms of, growing your own network, but also providing support and value to other people, it's actually through introductions that you can make. Because that's such an easy way to help somebody. Think about it. I've introduced a few people who ended up getting married, guys. Okay. So connecting can be really, really profound, and it takes you very little time to do it. There's an etiquette to it. right? You want to ask permission before you start introducing people to each other. You want to be very clear with each other about why you're introducing them. Okay, otherwise you're wasting people's time. So do remember, when you ask for help, you are also going to be offering help. Now, somebody, how do you address not having references? I'm curious to know why you don't have references. You should really be able to find somebody. I can't imagine there's nobody who can give you a reference. I really would push you. Okay, I realize I didn't answer the question about how to decide if a company is right for you, right? Because that's going to be part of the interviewing. Here are some questions that I want you to ask them. And this is part of my book, Ladies Get Paid. It's coming out on Tuesday. Very exciting. I want you to understand from this company their mission statement, if they have employee resource groups, how long people are staying at the company. I want you to do what Anjali Sood does. Anjali Sood is the CEO of Vimeo. She's like 37, a woman of color, like total badass. She's actually going to be, I'm doing a fireside with her next Thursday. And she does what she calls power mapping. So she looks on LinkedIn and she sees, all right, how long does somebody stay at this company? And how long does it take them to get promoted? And also, what kind of person is getting promoted? Are they all white guys? Are they all white guys with Ivy League degrees? Young, right? The sort of the trajectory and growth of a person at that company, because that's going to indicate to you, is this a place where you can thrive? You'll be able to tell that. Composition of their leadership, of course. So also, like, how are they committed to diversity and inclusion initiatives? Like, what are their metrics of success? Can they give you an example of how those programs have run and what's come out of those programs? Do they have professional development opportunities? By the way, this is something you can and absolutely should negotiate for, right? So saying to them, here's a conference I'd like to go to, or a class I'd like to take, or membership that I want, right? Get them to pay for the Ladies Get Paid book. Is this a company that's amenable to that? This is going to show if this is the right place for you. Because again, it's not just finding your job, your dream job, right? It is finding a job that is a good fit for you. You can look at the Glassdoor reviews, of course. Do take all of that with a grain of salt. I would say the best way to get an honest review of what it's like to work there is to find somebody who used to work there. Again, grain of salt. They may no longer work there because they're unhappy. They were unhappy with it. But you should know this stuff. You should know this stuff before you ask. So let's talk about, got 12 minutes left. This is the perfect time for me to jump back into the chats and see what is going on. I really hope this was helpful for you all. Why is it so important to have? So I'm going to start from the end here, but then I will go back up. If there's a question that you've seen that was posted before and you really want it answered, go ahead and repost it. That'll probably make it a little easier for me. Okay, why is it so important to have a photo of yourself attached to your resume? Is it more important that you're qualified for the job? What if you don't know how to put a photo on LinkedIn? What to do? Well, the last part, that you can Google. So fortunately, that's going to give you a bunch of answers. And do take your time in learning how to make a good LinkedIn. If you go to ladiesgetpaid.com/institute, that's our video library. We have webinars. We put new webinars up there every week. There's going to be stuff there that's going to help you. Here's an interesting thing about photos when you apply. I would absolutely love to hear this from other people, how you all feel. Diversity is important at a company. It's not just about what you do, right? This goes back to what I talked about before about it being who you are, because what you bring to the company is so much more than your skills, right? It is your life experience. It is your lived experience. So I actually think in a lot of ways, showing who you are, right, through your photograph is not necessarily a bad thing. Diversity is improved when people know who folks are when they apply. That being said, if you have a racist employer who is seeing who's applying going, I only want white men, okay, well then that's a problem. But there are, HR is also saying blind applications can help and also can hurt, because then you're not also looking at the holistic experience of the person applying. So that can be a bit controversial, but that's something I would mention. Let's see, more questions. You guys are giving real. By the way, if these are online, if you're doing your interviews over the internet, I have a ring light happening here. I spent time framing myself. I'm not wearing a bunch of stripes. I'm not wearing white. Like, I'm making sure that I look good. I know how close I should be. I'm probably a little too close. That's okay. I'm using my hands. I'm bringing a lot of energy. So this is a whole nother factor that we now need to figure out in terms of our interviewing here is how do we appear in this little box. Okay, let's see what other questions have been asked. I know. So school never teaches this stuff. Yeah, really, really annoying. I know. Okay, we got some trolls here. Well, that's okay. How do you know if it's a job that's giving you anxiety or if you're just prone to being anxious as a person? I would really break this down by what are the things that have given you anxiety? What are situations you've been in that give you anxiety? So is it, when you have to give a presentation? Do you get anxious when it's a certain kind of person that you're talking to? So as you start to break that stuff down, you can figure out how do you address them specifically, right? So how are you going to deal with your nerves when it's time for the presentation? Or are you anxious talking to this certain person because you just don't know them? Which means that's a time to get to know them, right? How are you going to build a relationship with them? Is this a person that makes you anxious because they're a dick? Maybe again, it's them. In Ladies Get Paid, which by the way, I profile the lives of 9 women, real women, and each of them is going through a different professional challenge. And as I tell their story, I stop along the way and I give advice. One of them, as she was figuring out her imposter syndrome, she did that exercise of writing down all of the times that she had that kind of imposter syndrome come up for her. And she realized that, yes, she came in with imposter syndrome, but she was also working with people that made her feel less than, made her feel like she wasn't that smart. So the only way she could know that was by breaking it down. So hopefully that was helpful. What else? Good. Job seekers bundle. Yeah. ladiesgetpaid.com/institute will be very helpful. How do we deal with constant rejection or places not even returning emails? It gets demoralizing. I do hope that you are networking because that will be a way to get yourself in the door. You can always follow up, by the way. If you're not accepted for the job, you got nothing to lose by asking, would you mind, do you have like a second for feedback? I mean, they probably don't, but you might as well just ask. This is where please have somebody else take a look at how you're applying. Because I want you to get a good sense. If everybody in your life is saying you're doing an excellent job and this is just a numbers game, and unfortunately you're just gonna have to apply to more places, as you do it, a way to stay motivated is also by having a side gig. Yes, I know that we may be very tired, but sometimes we're really tired because we're in a crappy place, right? And a way to get into a good place and a way to start doing the kind of work that gets you motivated, but also shows the prospective employer what you want to do, you might just have to create it for yourself. That was actually a question that was submitted. How about instead of just applying for the quote dream job, you make it yourself? That is actually how I have gotten every single job, or pretty much every job, was through work that I did on the side. Because it showed initiative, right? Being self-motivated, it showed a lot of, creativity and resourcefulness and commitment. It also allowed me to do the work that I actually wanted to do, that I wasn't really so much being able to do in the job that I had before. You really can't do this all on your own. So I would say when you join groups like Ladies Get Paid, or you're in, networking groups, see what other people are doing, and if you can offer your help. So if it's sort of too difficult for you to either come up with the idea or get something started, there are probably people out there who are doing their own gigs, their own side gigs, and you say, how can I help you? How can I help you? And yeah, I do believe, of course we all want to get paid, but if you've never done this before, you just need to add things to your resume. Cost benefit analysis. Can you afford to do some of this work for free, for trade, right? That's going to be your decision. Only you know what's best. So there's 8 minutes left here. It looks like there's not too many other questions that I got, actually. I think that may have had to do with some trolls, which, guys, it means we're women on the internet. It happens. I do like PayScale, by the way. PayScale, Indeed, are 2 really good sites to check out. Fairy Godboss, that is specific to women. Teal, TEAL is a new one. So there's a lot of things out there. Just remember, this is all about you learning things about yourself, and things happen for a reason. I do want to give just a quick insight into some decisions that I've made in my career super quickly, so you can see how I decided if an opportunity was worth it or not. I started independent film producing in Bosnia. Okay, I decided I didn't want to go into film largely because I wouldn't be making enough money. It didn't feel stable enough. I was too anxious about it, actually, and also I didn't have as much control over it. The end product, I was doing my best, but it didn't end up being sort of what I wanted it to be. So then I decided, okay, what from that experience and from looking at my high school and college experience, what did I do that I was really excellent at? I was excellent at, and that were transferable. It was raising money, which also is convincing people to give you things, to do things, right? The being persuasive. And then this was 2009. So the economy was really crappy. So then the question was, okay, who's actually hiring too? Remember, forget about the dream job part. It's also about just sort of opportunities. Well, nonprofits were hiring. They needed to hire people who could fundraise because the economy wasn't good. So I thought, okay, I'm going to start applying to jobs in fundraising. I was introduced to a person at a nonprofit. It was helping kids learn how to play chess to get them into college. Was I passionate about chess? Not particularly. But I was also passionate about the opportunity, which was, can we get younger people to start donating to this nonprofit? And I had a lot of ideas, and I got the job largely because of my ideas. So that's the thing. I know we want to bring in examples from the past, but it's also about selling yourself that you can do the job in the future. And that means, here's what I would do as the job. And I really got it because of my ideas. As I was doing the work, I realized what I liked, what I didn't like, and what I needed to learn more of. You know what I didn't like? It was kind of slow. Bureaucracy, nonprofit. It was a small nonprofit. There was only so much I could grow within the nonprofit. I wanted to be glamorous. That was I also, I wanted to be in a world that was really exciting. I also knew that I wanted to be near powerful people, and that means people with a lot of money. I wanted to affect a lot of people, impact a lot of people. These are kind of abstract ideas, which is good, because what I needed to do at that early point in my career is just orient myself. It's not good to get super focused too quickly, because then you're in a situation where you feel like you need to pivot and you don't have that other kind of experience. So we ended up moving into advertising because, again, think about the brands that have big budgets. They have big reach. Okay. The thing I loved and was very good at in the nonprofit job was event planning. And then I networked and I found a job in experiential marketing. So I'm losing a couple of, there's 196 people here, so I'll still keep going. As I joined the experiential marketing firm, something that we did as one of our events was at an organization called the Art Directors Club, which connects people in visual communications for jobs. I realized that I wasn't ready to make full commitment to a certain career path, that I wanted to keep meeting new people. And that I could work for a company whose role it is to connect people. And so I took that role because I wanted to expand my network. And the role was fundraising and planning events. So it actually brought together things I'd done. But do you see how my decision there was really more about myself, which was, I want to meet new people. So I'm going to take a job that gets me in front of as many people as possible. Long story short, I should say long story long at this point, I ended up doing my own thing. I created a startup, did not work, although it sort of turned into Ladies Get Paid eventually. I decided to go get a job after I quit my job, and for 8 months, I lived on people's couches in different neighborhoods every month in New York so that I had enough money to do my startup. When it didn't work, you know what I did? I didn't just say I want a full-time job for the sake of a full-time job. I asked myself, what do I need to learn in order to try again? I needed to learn how to run a company. So I needed to work for a startup, and a small startup, so that I could be on the ground level and see how they made decisions. Hiring people, firing people, etc. So I went and I found a job that was similar to the one that I'd had before, but it was more of the environment that I wanted. And I learned. And then I realized my true passion and purpose was helping women. And that took over 10 years to get there. And there you go. 1 minute left. My 1 minute is to please ask you to go to ladiesgetpaid.com/book. My book is available there. It is out on the 12th, which is very, very, very exciting. There you go. Ladies get paid. It's 320 pages of everything that you need to know to get the job that you want, to do well in that job, and to be paid what you deserve. There's also information there on how to make your company more inclusive, how to lobby elected officials, to have better policies that help women. Because at the end of the day, if you just work to help yourself, that's actually doing us all a disservice because of those gaps that we need to close. So how can we be agents for positive change? And I think most importantly, it's Friday. Enjoy yourself. Love yourself. You're doing a great job. You're here. Be proud. Thank you so much, all of you. Stay well. Stay safe.